Maplewood Estates had a problem, and her name was Karen. She wasn't just an HOA tyrant. She had a way of turning minor annoyances into full-blown disasters. But this time, she crossed a line I never thought possible. It all started at the local elementary school, where I volunteered as a parent coordinator. The school had recently acquired a defibrillator, a life-saving piece of equipment, mounted in the main office for emergencies. Everyone was aware of its importance, and a notice was posted reminding all staff and volunteers that tampering with it was a serious offense. Enter Karen. Somehow, she got wind that the defibrillator was unsightly and didn't fit her vision of neighborhood perfection. She stormed into the school one morning, clipboard in hand, and convinced the secretary that it was an unauthorized item, violating HOA aesthetic guidelines. Before anyone could protest, she had removed it from the office and carted it away in her SUV. When I heard about it, I felt my blood run cold. A defibrillator is not a decoration. It's a matter of life and death. I ran to the school office, only to find staff frantically explaining that Karen had taken it. She said it doesn't belong here, one teacher whispered, pale. She thinks it ruins the appearance of the office. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed my phone and called 911, explaining the situation in detail. This was no longer a civil dispute or an HOA skirmish. It was theft of emergency medical equipment. The dispatcher immediately flagged it as a high-priority call. Meanwhile, Karen was driving around town, clearly pleased with herself. She called a few neighbors to gloat about removing eyesores from the community. She had no idea I had already contacted the EMS and provided a precise description of her vehicle and direction of travel. Within 45 minutes, EMS officers tracked her down at a grocery store parking lot. Karen was standing next to her SUV, proudly holding the defibrillator like a trophy. When they approached, she tried to explain herself, waving her clipboard. "I'm enforcing neighborhood standards," she exclaimed. "This device is an eyesore, ma'am." One of the EMS officers interrupted, stern and unamused. "You are in possession of medical equipment belonging to a public institution without authorization. You need to come with us." Karen's face went through a full spectrum of emotions: shock, indignation, horror, before she finally realized the severity of her actions. EMS confiscated the defibrillator, returned it safely to the school, and read her the charges. Theft of emergency medical equipment carries serious legal consequences, and she would now have to answer for her actions in court. The school principal later thanked me personally, emphasizing that the defibrillator had been ready for use if an emergency had occurred during that hour Karen had it. I shuddered to think about what could have happened if a child had collapsed in that brief window. News of Karen's arrest spread quickly throughout Maplewood Estates. Suddenly, her aura of authority evaporated. Neighbors who had long cowered under her petty rules began speaking up, openly challenging her arbitrary fines and regulations. The same woman who once dictated the exact shade of mailboxes was now a cautionary tale about taking control too far. Karen eventually returned to her house, defeated and humiliated, facing court appearances and fines. The neighborhood moved on, but I still remember that hour vividly, the hour when one person's obsession with control could have cost lives, and how acting swiftly ensured it never did. Sometimes I think about Karen, sitting at her dining room table, replaying that moment in her mind, and I smile knowing that enforcing rules is one thing, but endangering lives is a line that nobody should ever cross.